purpose, putting some beauty into the world and calming our minds and our hearts and listening. So that's what we thought we would do. We decided to just do these painting sessions. So welcome. I know there's people all over the world painting with us at different times throughout the day. These are archives, so you can do it with me now, or as time goes by, you know, you guys can pick and choose whenever you have about an hour to do this. So like I said, we're going to be here for an hour-ish. All you need is your watercolor paper, your watercolor brushes, your watercolor paints, and some water. So let's get started. We're going to do flower today. We're doing flowers all week, and today we're doing a sunflower. So I wore my sunflower shirt. You know, it's the little things that get you excited these days, I feel like. So gather your supplies. If you don't have them already, you're going to need your watercolors. If you have watercolors like mine, that's great. If you have liquid ones, that's great. If you have ones like these, that's great. When we decided to do these painting sessions, I don't usually do watercolor. I usually use other mediums, like mostly acrylic on canvas. But not everybody has acrylic paint and canvases laying around in their house. But a lot of people have these guys stashed in their kids' art supplies. So I thought, you know what, let's try. Let's do some watercolors together. Use what everybody has already. And if if Amazon's working in your area, order away. Get what you want, get the supplies you want. The watercolor paper, I know people have been asking about how to get that, and really you can find it anywhere. Walmart, Target, even our grocery store, H-E-B in San Antonio has watercolor paper. Also, you can just order it online. So watercolor paper is the biggest question I've been asked about, because it really matters which paper you use. If you're using a copy paper, water on copy paper just kind of disintegrates the paper. So anything that's thick, some mixed media paper, or you can try cardstock, something that will let the paint and water soak in. Okay? So those are the supplies you need. Other than that, we're going to put this outline onto the water paper. So however you want to do that, you can use your copier. You can put it up against a window. You can trace it. Or you can use your mind's eye and draw it out freehand. When you go for freehand, everybody can do this. I know you can. Look for the shapes that you see in the outline. Look for circles, look for triangles, look for long, the long skinny sausage shapes, okay? That way you'll be able to transfer what's in your mind, what you're seeing through your eye, put it into your mind and get it out through your hand, okay? A lot of times the coolest paintings come out of just freehand, You're looking through your own perspective, and turns out a little different than mine because I'm looking through mine, right? So I'm assuming you have your outline and your supplies gathered on here, okay? First of all, we've got the dark brown thing here that's supposed to be kind of fuzzy. So we're going to give it a little bit of stippling motion with our brushes. We have delicate leaves that we don't want to look super opaque. Right? There's very delicate petals, not the leaves. And down in here we have, these are more opaque. This is a strong stalk, right? It has some shadow, it has some strength to it. And then this glass piece, it's crazy how you can make something look like it's see-through when it's not. And it's two-dimensional. Right? So all of these things are going to happen just with our outline and our watercolors. Today we're not using any Sharpies or any paint pens. We're just going to use the paint for this. All right? So you're going to use yellows, some browns, a little bit of orange maybe, some greens, a little brown in there for shadows. And then this is kind of like a turquoise color, and I put a little bit of yellow. Okay? Those are the colors you'll need. All right, let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do for this painting is these these petals out here. They're nice and delicate. They're bright and shiny. So let's start there. All right. Because they're going to be the delicate look, let's put water on them first so that the paint really just soaks in. We don't want like a marker looking mark on the paper, which will happen if you leave the paper dry. You can really control the paint going down onto your paper through your brush like a marker. But this one we want to be kind of a flowy, oops, I didn't wash my brush very well. It's got pink in there. That's not what we want. We want this flowy, light paint. So I'm just going to do maybe 4 or 5 petals here with water, just painting with water, getting that paper wet. Okay, and then we'll go in with some yellow. Now, if you have more than one yellow, I would suggest using the lighter yellow first. Okay, so sometimes you'll have, well, it looks like I've mixed some green into my yellow here, but sometimes you'll have a lighter yellow and a darker yellow on these palettes. Go in with the yellow that's the lightest, okay? We're just going to put that base color down. So we're just going to let it flow. We're not going to even fill every little space in. We let some white show through. And let it flow all over those wet leaves that you've painted with water already, okay? Just like that, nothing fancy, nothing very precise. Just getting that layer down, okay? I know this is a favorite flower of many people. I've seen people were messaging me and people were asking for this sunflower, so I hope it delivers. And like I said, if this is your favorite flower and you have a vision of what these sunflowers look like in your mind, you make it happen on your paper. Look at what's in your mind and say, okay, how can I make that happen? All right. Moving down into the rest of these petals, we're going to just get them wet and put that first layer of yellow on. So pretty. It's a sunshiny day in San Antonio, so it's a perfect day for these sunflowers. We have had so much rain and so many cloudy skies. I welcome the almost 90-degree weather just to have the sun shining. Yes, I do. It makes me want to go get that get the power washer out. Suddenly yard work seems like a fun thing to do. Okay, continuing on. Now over here, the base of the flower, you can see, are these green little chunky things. They're really kind of thick petals, I think, down here. They were covering the bud at one point and then they opened up and now they're kind of hanging down. So these are thicker, chunky kind of pieces here, but the petals are coming up out of it. See that? So we don't want to make these yellow is what I'm saying. Those are green. So as you're looking at your outline, there are these 4 chunky things, and then there's little petals coming down into them. So just so you can see, it's hard to see when it's just the pencil marks. But keep an eye on what you're filling in and what you're not. Okay, filling in the yellow. Just loosely, okay? So we've got a loosely filled in yellow. Okay, now we'll go back in with a darker yellow. If you have a darker yellow that has maybe a little more of an orange tint to it, or a darker, deeper yellow, we'll go in with that. Now, you don't want to fill in every part that the other yellow is. You want to highlight. So just go in, go around the edges, maybe go up into the flower, but you don't want to cover over all the light yellow. Okay, so just let it kind of flow into the, maybe the creases, maybe the, just kind of loose again. The tendency can be to want to just cover up the light that you just put on, but we do want both of those colors to show through, you know. So just let them come, little here, little there, highlighting. I've been hearing from some of you lately that some of you are just watching and not painting along. And I think that's kind of fun. Of course, I would always love for you to be a part of creating as well, but if you're just enjoying listening and watching, I get that. I grew up watching Bob Ross. I'm not calling myself a Bob Ross. Oh no, I would never. But I get the appeal. Get the appeal. Okay. There's a second yellow. All right. Just as loose as can be. All right. Now we're going to go in with some brown to highlight. So, like we've said before in other paintings, the petals are going to go down into the flower, and where they go down in, they're going to have some shadow. The light is brightest out in the tips, and as they go down into the flower, there would be less light. So we're going to have some shadow down around this area, and then maybe up where they're touching or overlapping the other petals. Okay, so we'll start at the bottom and kind of come up a little bit, but we don't want to have, you know, shadows out on the tips. That doesn't make any sense, right? That's not how light works. So we're going to go in with just a little bit of light brown. If you only have a dark brown, just add a lot of water to it. Okay, going in right by the bottom here and coming in. I'm using a lot of water so that it flows. It's not like lines, it's more like a shadow, right? Think of what a shadow looks like. It kind of would go up where the other petals are overlapping. This brown can also give a little bit of extra shape to the petals. So if you wanted to put it, you know, where the petals kind of crease a little bit or crease this way, maybe there would be a shadow along the crease. So you could put some brown in there, that kind of thing. Really just think about how the light would work. Now see this baby petal back here, she's hiding a little bit, so she would have a little more shadow than the others, right? Just coming up out into the light. We plant a garden every year. I think we've missed a year or two here and there. Well, one year we lived in Dallas, Texas, and we sowed some seeds, just put seeds in the ground. And the two things that grew like crazy were cucumbers. They were like that, you know, just huge and crazy amount of them. And sunflowers. Oh, we must have gotten the gigantic, the giants, because they were 10 feet tall, and their heads were, as big as a car tire. It was crazy. We loved that. That was fun. Since we've moved to San Antonio, haven't seen a whole lot of that, but I think we live out in kind of the country, and I think critters eat my plants. Maybe possums, or I don't know, lizards maybe. As soon as a little bud comes up, especially with lettuce, I can't get lettuce to grow. It pops up and then they're gone. They don't like arugula though. Okay, so this one I'm going to be, this shadow might be down underneath. See, we're seeing the back side of this petal here. So I'm going to put a extra there. And again, watercolor dries lighter than it goes on. So we'll do this, and we might go in later and add a little bit depending on how we're feeling. Nice and light. Again, watercolor is a practice in realizing what you can and cannot control. And really, truly, we want to put some beauty in the world, and we also want to give our minds and our bodies just an hour to decompress and focus on one thing for a little bit. There's something that happens. I was just listening to a podcast, and they were talking about how they've done studies on what it does to our bodies, to our physiological brains and our hearts, like our whole bodies, like the endocrine system, what it does for ourselves when we write out how we're feeling or draw out what we're feeling. And it wasn't even so much even the content of what we were feeling, but putting down something onto paper that they say really actually like lowers your blood pressure and boosts your immune system. I mean, it sounds too magical to be true, but I believe it, because I naturally have always wanted to go to, when I'm feeling stressed, I want to focus on one thing. I want to get my brain to sit down and focus, read a book, or write. I write in my journal. Write morning pages if you've done the artist's way, and create. That's what I started doing just because I was having babies and I was alone in my house. My husband was working a lot. I needed a time away to just sit and focus. All right, I'm going to put a little bit of orange highlights in. You can notice here. I can see those little orange highlights. Just a little dab will do, yeah? Right? Something that will just add a little bit of depth to the yellow. So we'll just go in a little here and there. This is just a highlight color. Okay. And again, the beauty of it is learning what you can and can't control, and then going in and saying, oh, that's actually more beautiful than what I could have done if I tried to make it happen. Watercolor does that. I was talking to a friend, she was like, oh, I just love how the water just disperses and makes its own shapes. I'm like, yes, that's my favorite too. Okay. All right. I think we're done with our first, pass at these petals. Let's move down to the stem here. All right. So you notice I used a light green first, and then I went in and put a dark color, kind of an outline, kind of as a highlight along the edges, and some brown as well to make the shadows. So this side of my stem is in the light, this side is in the darkness. It's being shadowed by this huge flower, right? So these would have more shadow than this side, yeah? Okay, speaking of cool things that watercolor does, look at that. Like I couldn't do that if I tried. Okay. All right, so we're gonna go in with a light green, lighter green, all right? And we're gonna just put a layer of light green down. Okay, and all the way down the stem and these little, I don't know, funny little leaf things. I noticed when I was looking at pictures of sunflowers, they had all kinds of weird little jaggedy things coming off of them. A lot of little pieces. I'm not sure what they are. I'm sure a scientist could tell us, oh, the purpose of those, but I thought, oh, interesting. I'll add them. I don't know what they are, but I'll add it. Okay, don't be afraid to put water on these. Then the stem, like I said, there's some cool patterns that they can make. But this first layer, just get the green down, all right? All right, these could have the light green too. We'll add some more colors to them later, but these leaves are cool. Just a layer of green. And if you're feeling good about just having this layer of green and you don't want to add all the shadows and things, this is just fine. I mean, really, truly, you choose the level of involvement that you want to do, right? There's no right or wrong in all of this. This is just the way I'm doing it, the way I'm seeing it. But you feel the freedom to think through it the way you want. You want to have a purple sunflower? Go for it. You want to just fill your leaves in like that and leave them? That's fine too. No pressure. All right. I'm going to go back in with a darker green over this lighter green. I'm wondering if I should use it. I think I'll use a smaller brush. Maybe I'll use my number 4. Okay. I'm going with that darker green just because I don't want to have it an overall color. I want to have it just around kind of the edges and on these little spiky things poking out. See how I'm going along the edge? And then I'll add some water to let that soak into the middle. But I don't want to cover all of the white, just like the pink, the yellow that we put on the petals. We want to allow that light pink to be showing through. Pink, that light green to be showing through. So now I'm going to put water on that. Just kind of control it a little bit, but move it around so that dark green kind of melds in with the light green. See how that is? Okay, I'm going to move to the next little chunky thing under the flower. Going around the edges. I have too much water on my brush. If you're trying to have control and the paint is going its own way and you're not okay with it at that moment, then just take some of the water out. Usually it's the water that's wanting to flow wherever it wants. Okay, so I have my little outline. And now I'll add the water to that outline and let it flow into the middle. Okay. Be very careful because you don't want it to go up into the petals. All right, moving on. Another little chunk. I was thinking about this the other day. I haven't really ever done, other than the painting parties that I do, I guess I have been practicing painting parties, telling people how to paint. But usually, most of the time, what I'm doing in my own room, which right now, you can't see it, but right next to me, there's a huge canvas on the wall waiting for a painting. And every time I come in here, I'm like, I can't wait to get at that. Anyway, usually, like that painting, will be done in total silence with myself, right? And I'm not thinking, okay, now I'm going to put this paint here. I don't verbalize it, but I'm finding myself, talking it through. It's not so hard for me. I don't know where that came from. Okay, so we've got those. Oh, I think there's a little cute little curly Q there. I'll just do that. Cute. Had a little bit extra water, so hopefully she stays in her place. Oh, I don't know. She's going to start flowing around. Okay. Let's put a little bit of color on these guys as well. I'm just going to put a darker bottom, thinking about where that shadow might be on the underneath side. So just along the bottom of those flowers, those little leaf things, and then adding water to let them flow into the rest of the leaf. Just let that sit. You don't need to control it. Okay, same thing down here. I'm going to put the darker green along this side in the shadow, okay? So all along here. And down here especially, that'll be dark. All right, and water to let it blend. These stalks are so thick, they're like really hefty. Have you ever gotten them in like a flower set? Somebody sends you flowers and you're supposed to cut the bottom off. You have to use like a saw almost to get them. Okay. So I'm going to let that soak in, and we'll add brown as we go down the stem again. Let's go in here in these leaves and put that extra dark green in. So around the edges again. Just this shape is nice and pokey and pointy. So let those tiny little points of the brush get down in there to the tips of those leaves. Make a point. Just outlining it right this second. And maybe that line down the middle. Now the water, letting that water flow around the leaf. I might add a little yellow to this mix just because I think it'll make it cool. I have a lot of water on there. I'm going to go in, really clean my brush with some yellow and just drop that yellow into the water and let it just soak in there. See what happens. Let the water do its crazy ideas. Okay, moving to this one here, doing the same thing. Okay, I'm not going to outline that right there by the petal just because that's not what the natural outline of the flower or the leaf is. Adding water, and I'll get a little bit of yellow in there. Drop that in. Okay, and let it be, see what happens. Let it be wild. I like making pictures of nature just because the wildness is of especially of watercolor is just how nature is. Okay, all right. While we're letting that dry, we don't want to touch it at all. We don't want to move it around because the water is definitely just pooling there, and I want to let it settle in and make its own shapes. But if I start moving it around, if I do too many brush strokes, it will all turn into one color. If I move the paper around too much, it will do the same. It will just all meld together. So we don't want that. Let's be very careful about that and move to this this dark brown middle part. Now this middle part, I mean, if you have your own if you've seen sunflowers, they have all those cool seeds, like gobs of seeds in there, right? And they're really intricately put in exactly in place. If you would like to make every little stipple seed showing, go for it. My strategy for that, for this painting, is just to use a stipling motion with my brush up and down like that, to just have an illusion of some fuzziness and not super detailed. But if you would like to go in and do some details, this would be one place that would be really beautiful. Go and look at pictures of real sunflowers and see, how could I do that? What can I do here? Okay, I'm going in with my dark brown, and I'm just going to fill that space in with dark. Okay, along those petals, you want to be nice and precise. Allow the delicacy of those petals to stay without the dark going onto them. Stay nice and pretty. It's kind of the cool, one of the coolest spots on this painting, I think, is here where you see the petals going up into the dark, and you can see the shape of those petals. I think that's a pretty, the contrast is pretty there. So allow that to be kind of a highlighted area, I think, in my mind anyway. So again, watercolor dries lighter than it goes on and gets darker as you put layers of paint on. So obviously, we're going to need another layer or two, right? We'll also add a little black and a little orange to that mix. But right now, we'll just get that first layer of brown on. and let it dry a bit, and we'll go back in and put another layer. Okay. All right, while we have brown on our brush, why don't we go in and put some of these shadows on the stem. Okay, so there are some little jaggedy little pieces here. I'm just going to make them brown. Might go in with a little green to mix it a little bit, but I'm going to use water and just pull that brown down along, mostly along this right side here. Okay, I'm a little concerned that this pool of water is trying to escape. Okay, so pulling it down, just like that. All right, adding water so that it blends with the green and just makes the cool shapes. Yeah. Okay. These little guys could use a little bit of brown in there, little shadows here and there. Just a little bit of hints of brown, maybe even down here. It's all kind of made of the same stuff, so. Okay. All right, as this has got a little time to dry, let's go in with another layer of brown again. Okay, see, already a little darker. I'm using that stippling motion, just allowing the paint to kind of bunch up in some places and not in others. That way it doesn't look like a smooth surface. This little spot on the flower would be anything but smooth, right? My henna is dropping little pieces everywhere. I just did that this afternoon again. So it's kind of getting sticky everywhere. It's dry though, it's just falling off. Time to take it off pretty soon. Somebody was asking about my my recipe for henna, and I got that from my friend AJ, who has she has a cool business called Enjoy Productions, and she does all kinds of cool things like mermaid parties and fairy parties and things like that. Shout out to AJ Smith and Enjoy Productions. Anyway, she does henna. She was doing it on me for a while, and then she's like, "You should do your own." So I did. I have been. It's fun. Okay, it's darker. I'm going to leave it, let it dry for a minute and see what happens. We maybe put some black or some orange in there. Okay, while we're waiting for this whole thing to dry, let's move on to this jar here. All right. I just think these jars are so fun to make because they do just look so 3D, and it's just the easiest thing. So we've drawn the jar so that it has 3D aspects kind of built into it, right? We've got the roundedness, and here the water, this back edge is up higher and it's behind the flower, and this edge is coming down around the flower, and this mimics the bottom of this jar. So, you know, the aspects of the 3D is already there, but then we add the paint. It's just the fun thing. Okay, so I'm going to go in with like an aqua color, kind of a light blue. You could do any really color. Those, yep. These jars come in all different colors, right? Okay, so we're just going to very lightly go along the edges of this jar. Just the edge, just a hint of the color, right? The color is usually darker along the thicker parts of the jar. So nice, it goes over that stalk, right? This jar is in front of the stalk of the flower. Okay, so we're coming across. Nice light brush strokes. Okay, very lightly coming down, just so that we see a hint of that color coming through. Now this area down here is a thicker part of the jar, so it gets more color. And this side too. Okay. Now back here, this area is going to be lighter because it's looking through the water, so it will have some color, but not as much. This area in the front is the darkest part, and then also this line here would have some color along it. Okay, so even at this point, it looks like a jar, right? But now if we go in and add a lot of water to our brushes, and just kind of don't clean your brush, just add water to it, and let's just put a little bit of color along in where the water is. See how that is? Just flowy. Okay, now you wouldn't want to go over the stalk there, but down here you would. Okay, that makes sense, right? The water is going to be flowing over the stalk down here. Okay, and down around. Oop. Got a little bright. Lots of water. I'm going to put a little bit kind of shadows up in here as well. Kind of up along the edges over here too. So it shows that there's a little bit of a roundedness. And just mostly just water. Okay. Flower would be in there. So with a lot of water, just a dab of yellow. Okay, there's our jar. Fun, right? So fun. I love this painting. It's a lot of making use of the watercolor and the aspects of the watercolor that really make it fun. You know, with the acrylic paint, you're putting it exactly where you want it, and you can mix the colors. You have more control over where you're mixing and how it's happening. With watercolor, really, with the water aspect, you have a lot of strong enough. I'm going back in with a little bit more brown. And I'm going to put more brown on these. I didn't put brown on these before, but I'm going to put a little bit of brown along my leaves just because. Maybe I'll put a little bit of brown along the bottom of my stem as well. It would be darker on the bottom. There's a lot of water down there though. I need to soak some of that up. That could have been a catastrophe, you guys. Okay. Last thing I think we need to do is go in and really put a little maybe more highlights in these leaves, but mostly darken up this area here so that the contrast is really nice. So I am going to use a black and go in just along the edges in those places where the light would really not be shining. And give it a good contrast between the brown and the petals. Let the petals shine. Be red, nice and bright. Okay, while we're doing this, I'll tell you, tonight we are doing our second book study Zoom call. So if you're interested in having a discussion about the book called The Artist Way by Julia Cameron, it is a book that gives all kinds of encouragement to artists, but also just anybody who is creative, who wants to explore their creativity. That can look like book writing, that can look like what we're doing here, it can look like engineering, it can look like all kinds of things in your life, practically how that's worked out. But this book has what she calls tasks each week to really delve into your own who you are and what you're made for, and let that out. So if you're interested in that conversation, you can sign up on patreon.com/Sarah Giese, and that is where that is. It's a subscription based site, the Patreon is. So if you're interested in painting along with me on some bigger paintings or doing more book studies, that's where you would sign up. All right. Ooh, put some black up in the wrong spot. Okay, going around the edges with some black and maybe a little bit of orange, just for little highlights. It's not showing up very much. Maybe I'll use a dark, bright orange. Yeah. Okay. The last thing I think I'm going to do, which I did on this one, is I put paint splatters. It's just fun to do paint splatters. So, we could overuse that little technique, but I don't know. Maybe that's not even a possibility to overdo that fun thing. I don't know. I don't think so. It's too fun to be overdone. So how I'm going to do that, I'm going to use my biggest brush, which is this. I do have huge brushes for my acrylic paints, but for my watercolors, this is my biggest one. Put a lot of water on there, really get a lot of yellow paint on. I'm going to put my finger like this, and I'm just going to splatter the paint like that. I think it's fun. I'm putting it all over the place. There you go. And that's that. Happy sunflower. It's a fun thing to do for an hour, isn't it? I'm glad you joined me. I'm glad you are taking the time to take care of yourself and to put some beauty in the world during this time, especially that we just really need. We really need to be doing life on purpose. Sometimes we can just let life go by and happen, but right now it's best to be purposeful and mindful of what we're doing and why we're doing it. Rethinking, how is my life working and how is it not working? This is the time to be doing that. Anyway, so this hour of creation, doing something beautiful, is part of that. So thank you for joining me. Show your art. Show me what you did. I would love to see it. And you have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you tomorrow. Grace and peace and wholeness to you and your whole households. Thanks for being with me today.